everyone. Welcome to another year-end record countdown with me and Scott and Casey. This is the third or fourth year. I can't remember. Third year?
I was
Third year.
thinking longer.
No, I think it's only been our third year.
Okay.
But this year we had a nice year of being quarantined with our music. So maybe some of us got a little bit more acquainted with our tunes than in previous years. But yeah, there was a lot of output this year. So I had a lot of opinions about the music that came out, and I'm sure you guys did too. So folks who are tuning in don't know who I am. My name is Craig Bideman. I am at Craig Bideman on Instagram, and I host a thing called the Vinylside Chat on Sunday evenings, which is a pretty cool way to just like chat with people about records. I also host the podcast Edupunks, which might be coming to an end. I don't know, or an extended break. We'll see. Kind of. Some people started podcasts during the pandemic. I might be ending mine. So it kind of just depends. But yeah, I'm going to pop it over to Scott. He can give a little intro of himself.
Yeah, Scott Hayden. Instagram is baseball and music. What else should I say about myself? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
What's important in your life?
Just
give us the
girl.
real Scott.
No one wants to know that person. Just had a little girl 4 months ago, Nora. So she's our first, and so that's a really big thing going on right now. Yeah, just big into music. I guess the other thing is I'm a big Dodger fan, and Dodgers won the World Series, so represent. But other than that, I mean, yeah, that's the big things, I guess. Go ahead, Casey.
Casey Arn, Instagram handles Viva La Stereo. I've been collecting records for 12, 13 years now, and met these guys kind of through that. Met Scott when I used to work at a record store / hang out at the record store, and met Greg through Instagram and our mutual love of the Portland Trailblazers, who we're hoping do a lot better this year. I also became a dad this year. We adopted our one and only, and will probably be only, son, Jude. And I am a fan of Detroit Tigers hats. So not the team. I get many people.
What do you think about their rotation this year, Casey? Tell me, what do you think? You think they got anything going?
I mean, what is their rotation? Clockwise? I don't know. I have people come up and talk to me about. I used to wear a Cleveland hat too, not the super racist one, the one with just the C on it. And like they're obscure enough.
Not the super racist one, just the mildly racist one.
Yes, just the one with the C. Just for Cleveland, it's not even an I. You know.
Yeah.
They're changing their name, by the way.
Oh,
they just announced it. They're changing they're in 2021. They're gonna have. I think they're phasing, like, this is going to be the last year that they have it, and then 2022 they'll have a new nickname.
You should do what the Redskins did and just be the Cleveland baseball team.
I think the Redskins are actually coming out with a new one too, though.
Yeah, they will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just like the Washington football team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So other than that, just it's been an interesting pandemic year here in the Northwest with the fires, and I'm a high school teacher, so just teaching from home, and it's a lot of time spent in my room.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yep. Craig, how did you and I meet? I mean, I know obviously Instagram, but I just posting?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we've known each other for at least 6 years now, which is crazy.
Yeah, that would make sense. You're one of the earlier vinyl people that I followed, so connected with. So so what we're doing today, just chatting about our top 10 records of the year. The three of us will go through in some popcorn manner, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll talk about each record at each level. We're not just giving our full list at once. So to build the anticipation. But for now, let's just jump right in. Some of us might have honorable mentions before our 10, so we can share those when we get started. I'll get started. Just because I'm, I guess, hosting. But yeah, I'm just gonna get to share like the first honorable mentions. I'm not gonna say a whole lot about them because I don't want to belabor that a lot. But I listened to a lot of different stuff this year. I didn't really dig so much into post rock as I normally do, or shoegaze as I normally do. I listened to more like upbeat music this year, which is weird. I think I just needed like happier music in my life,
Yeah.
perhaps. And so I listened to stuff that like gave me some energy this year. One of the records that did that for me was the new Dance Gavin Dance record. Always have fun with Dance Gavin Dance. They're never really like a top 10 record for me, but they're always like kind of just below it. But yeah, I think that they had a really good record this year. Sufjan Stevens just missed my top 10. I love The Ascension. It's long, um, but it's like an hour and a half long, but it definitely does deliver in like what I love for Sufjan. And then the new Touche Amore record just missed as well. That record is brighter than anything they've ever released, and I feel especially the Reminders song got a lot of people amped up and in good moods. So and
Yeah.
then the last one that I had for my honorable mention is Biabadoobie. She put out a record that is just super bright, kind of grungy, but just like good dreamy pop stuff, indie pop stuff that I came to pretty late, like only about a month ago, and I just fell in love with it immediately when we were
Doesn't
working
that,
on.
doesn't that name just, I feel like if you say that name out loud, you have to do like a little dance to it.
Like
Like you can't just say
Biabadoobie,
exactly. You got to do that. Like it's just
Biabadoobie.
like you got to do something like that.
Just shimmy a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
did you guys like any of those honorable mentions that I had?
Um,
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
oh, I was going to say, I really dug that Biabadoobie. If I would have done an extended, like top 25 this year, would have definitely made it in there. Touche, as they usually do, like aside from stage 4, I'm always like, this is really good. And then I don't come back to it all that often. Yeah, so those are the, yeah, definitely records I listen to. Like I keep on going back to it, but it's not like, I don't know. It's aside from stage 4, none of their records has ever hit me in like that mood where I'm like, I have to listen to this all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stage 4 is definitely my favorite of theirs. That was, I think, high on my list the year it came out. This one, the new one is really good, but I'm kind of with you, Casey, where it's like I haven't gone back to it enough. I'm sure I will eventually. The other one by them that I always loved was Parting the Sea. Like that one,
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a lot the year it came out. But for me, the the honorable mentions for me were just like either ones that I found late in the year. So like the Laura Jane Grace solo album was absolutely wonderful, but I just discovered it like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, maybe at most. I think a week and a half ago. But that one's great. It reminded me a lot of her EP, the Heartburns, the one under her dead name. But it reminded me a lot of that in the early Against Me, like the EP. But it's great. I just haven't had a lot of time with it, but that maybe would have made my list if I had more time with it. Craig, I mentioned to you the new Kid Cudi is really, really good.
Yeah.
And another one that if I had had more time with it, it maybe would have made my top 10. And then the last one was Yashira, which is I think it was on Good Fight. But that one was again fantastic, really cool, really heavy album. But I just didn't have enough time with it. I just only discovered it. Well, I think it only came out a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
That was the like melodic hardcore ish.
No, it's very metallic, like very botch and like
Oh
Baptiste.
yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, like Botch, Baptiste, and like that kind of cult leader type, heavy, sludgy at times, but enough melody to keep it interesting. Like I don't know when it's too heavy. I'm not into like. I need some form of melody either in the guitars or the vocals or something. But yeah, I really like that one. And then the other ones are just like I don't really call them all honorable mentions, but 2020 was for me. I spent a lot of time like either listening to albums from like 15 or 20 years ago that I didn't know, or ones that I did know but I wasn't super familiar with, like that I wanted to get more familiar with. So um like I kind of spent a lot of time like digging into that stuff, like Burnt by the Sun and Nora and Life in Your Way. There's a couple early like Evergreen Terrace albums that had never heard. I was never really a fan of them, and then I discovered their first two, and I was like, "Oh man, this is really good." So like a lot of like that early like 2000s metalcore stuff that I was not like either familiar with, like I know the name, or oh yeah, I've heard this a couple times, but I've never really dug into it. I spent a lot of time like going back because that's kind of my favorite era of music. So when I wasn't getting what I wanted from new music, I kind of went back and discovered a lot of that old stuff and bought it on. That's like a lot of my vinyl purchases this year. So that was those were mine. Not really an honorable mention, but if you look at like my Spotify or Last FM, like that was a lot of the music that I listened to was those stuff.
Cool. Casey, did you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I did, and they kind of go because I just had 3 basically tied for number 10, so they'll be my honorable mentions, and I'll just call one of them my number 10, and we can start. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So one, just because if I had more time with it, it'd probably end up further on the list. But this band, I Love Your Lifestyle, No Driver song, basically Shilly Shally was probably my favorite song of the year, bar maybe one other song. Just really good. Like almost love the album on the strength of that song. The rest of it's really good, but not quite consistent enough with that one thing in order to take it to the next level. And it kind of came out later in the year, so still kind of absorbing it. Another honorable mention I had was the Seer Believer record, which is I think out on Memory Music, which is Will Yip's label. Which my next one, my number 10, is also on the same label. But just really good kind of fall record, even though it came out in summer. And I think kind of that placement of when it came out, not coming out in the fall, where it would have been really good, like mood wise, probably would have shot it up a little bit further. I mean, like at one point, I was listening to that so much, I was like, maybe this is my number 1, but then it just kind of fell off a little bit for me towards the end, as happens. And then my number 10, which I won't say too much about because I have a feeling maybe this might be a little overlap of me and Craig, but is the Barty Strange record, Live Forever or Live Forever, I don't know.
I think it's Live.
I think it is Live. But this record came just out of nowhere for me because basically every music release day, I never check like Spotify recommends because I don't have Spotify and I don't have any of that stuff. So I always just check the same message board every day, and they always have releases. It's the Chorus FM one. They have like some releases to let me know what's going on, but I mostly just check the comments because I find out about a lot of great bands in the comments because people are like, you didn't say this one, you didn't say this one. And a bunch of people, like 2 or 3 people mention the same record, I usually go check it out. And so I put on Barty Strange, and it wasn't something I listened to all the time, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is something completely new and different. And I've never heard anything so disparate yet so cohesive in a record, and like, so it just really impressed me with how out there it was, but it wasn't just weird for the sake of being weird, or I should say strange. But anyway, I really enjoyed quite a bit of the songs. So yeah, that's my number 10.
I am going to talk about it later. So if Scott has things he wants to say about it, go for it.
Yeah. It didn't make my top 10, but when you had originally mentioned, I can't remember which one of you, we talked about it in our text thread, but I checked it out. It didn't resonate with me at all the first time. And then I think a couple weeks ago or a week ago, I went back and listened to it. A lot of people were talking about it again. I'm like, I'll give that one another chance. And it hit me a little bit better this time, especially what's the big
Boomer?
hit?
Boomer.
Yeah, that one's really good. And there's a couple other ones that are really good on that. I could see it being something that I could get into a little bit more. But also more importantly, I think Megan would like it a lot. And so that might be a little bit more motivation in me playing it, because I think it would be something that like we both might like a little bit more. But I mean, certainly original, and the guy is incredibly talented. He's got a great voice too. I really like his voice.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do this year with at least 3 or 4 of my music friends has been like, all right, I want you to listen to this whole song, and I'm playing Boomer. I'm like, I want you to slap a genre on it, and they get like 15 seconds in, they're like, this is. I'm like, no, 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 no. You have to wait. You have to wait and hear the rest of the song, and then it morphs so many times that you're just like, well, I don't know what that is. It's like some combination of like hip hop, Block Party, and Ben Harper. Like, it's like all over the place.
It honestly, a lot of the album, especially that song, reminded me of like the late aughts indie rock type stuff, like the Peter, what is it, Peter, Bjorn, and John, that one, like the young folks, like that kind of like, where it's kind of jaunty, and that song especially reminded me of it. But I mean, you're right, it steps into like that. Well, the first song is like an R&B song, that Jealousy, is that what it's called? That one's like an R&B song, and then it goes into that weird like kind of shoegazy song that with the, is it a keyboard, the so that was it just jumps all over the place. So I know Casey loves it when I make noises with my mouth to try to sing songs.
Yeah, that was great. It was like I was like,
It's like
I was listening to the record.
Holy shit, are you Bartiz Strange?
Is it Barties or Barties?
I don't know. I just say Bartiz, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Bartiz?
Okay. Anyway.
All right, who's got their number 10?
Scott, go ahead.
Number 10 was a record that you mentioned, Craig, which was Dance Gavin Dance, Afterburner. This, like, I wasn't a fan of them until I think a year ago. And so when this one came out, this was like the first one that had come out since I had kind of become a fan of them. You explained it very well. Like, I think a lot of their hardcore fans would probably be pissed at this like explanation of their sound, but to me they're just like a really good pop band. Like, the songs are really poppy. Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah. I was listening last night and I'm like, yeah, okay, obviously there's a difference between them and, I don't know, Carly Rae Jepsen or whatever. Like, there's obviously a difference there, but like, I don't think anyone's listening to any of their records, or at least the stuff recently, and going, oh my gosh, this is life-changing. Like, it's not life-changing. It's just good pop music that's, like you said, uplifting. There's a ton of really good songs on it. I honestly listened to it a lot the first half of the year, and then other stuff came out and I didn't return to it a ton, but I listened to it enough and enjoyed it enough that I felt the need to put it in my 10. Just like with some of the honorable mentions that I had, I didn't feel like I had given enough time, and it's just, there's really only one song that I don't like on it, and it was the one that you mentioned. I remember we had that conversation about it. I can't remember what it's called. Like, is it Parallel or In Parallel or Parallels? Yeah, that song's like kind of meh. But yeah, I mean, there's so many good songs. I really liked the Calamiento. Yeah, the Spanish one. That one's really good. The song about Born to Fail. I can't remember the name. Born to Fail, Strawberries Wake. Like, it's got a lot of really good songs. I'm not a huge fan of John Mess. I know a lot of people don't like him as well, but most people say they don't like the lyrics. I don't have a problem with the lyrics. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them, but that's not my issue. I just don't really like the way he screams. Not a huge fan of it. Like, they could get rid of him and just have Tillian the whole time, and I would think they'd be that much better. But
Interesting.
he's fine, I guess. But it's just a really good pop album.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. It is probably their poppiest of all their albums.
Yeah.
I think they hit on a lot of different things throughout the history of the band and throughout the album, which is really good too. And I also just loved the videos that they put out for this album were really great. Strawberries Wake is really good. Basically Learn to Fly by Foo Fighters, but like in a more ridiculous manner. And I think that they did just a really good job releasing it and everything amid a pandemic. So they did the most that they could, especially for a band that had a lot of plans for this year.
Yeah. Like Strawberries Wake, if I had done, I don't really ever do like top songs of the year, but if I did, that song would be on top 10. Like, to me, like, that was a feel good song for me, of like, this like really the whole year, like whenever I'd be in a bad mood or like that song would come on, I just love the chorus where he's like, roll the windows down, ba-da-da-da. Like, and it was just like, it's just a feel good song. It reminds me of like being with my friends, and like during a year when you can't be with your friends, it feels good to like kind of live moments that would either remind you of that or put you in that same space. And that song was just like, roll the windows down, turn the music up, like have fun with your friends driving down the highway or wherever. It was just a really feel good song. I loved singing along to that song in the car for sure.
Nice.
Yeah,
I dig it. I ran to it a lot. I ran to a lot of Dance Gavin Dance this year.
See that? Yeah,
it's good stuff to run too.
Yeah, and it's different tempos too. I don't like when I run listening to like the same tempo. It's nice to like have some be more fast and more slow, and they switch it up quite a bit, so that's cool.
Number 10 for me was Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I kept toying with this album a lot this year, whether it should be higher or even like sometimes when I was like charting out my list, I had it lower and then I would go back to it because for a little while there were a couple songs in the middle where I'm just like, okay, but then the songs that are really good really tied me back, like brought me back, where I was like, yeah, Garden Song, Kyoto, Punisher, Moon Song, like they just kept pulling me back in. And the last three, ending with ICU to Graceland 2 and I Know the End, probably one of the best endings of an album that I heard this year. It got a lot of hype this year. Phoebe probably had the best year musically, I think, in hype than really anyone else. Like she blew up this year, and it was pretty incredible to watch because I remember seeing her open for Julian like 4 or 5 years ago, and no one knew Phoebe. And like I got to talk to her, and I have a burned CD that she has of some that she just gave out at she had like 5 copies of this burned CD of a bunch of covers she did. So I have that. It's probably gonna be worth some money, so I'm holding on to it. But yeah, so I had that at number 10. Did either of you dig into that one?
I listened to it a few times over the summer. It was one of those ones like I kind of brought it out and I was like, this is pretty good. And I think it was that middle kind of dragged it down for me, and I didn't really ever come back to the end of it because I tend to digest albums kind of in chunks, especially with a child, because you don't get a long window of time to like stuff. Like I loved Kyoto. I thought that was a fantastic song. I really thought it was going somewhere. And then and that's pretty much. But it's a really good album. I would give it best cover art of the year.
It's really cool.
It's a really cool album cover. I will likely go back to it at some point, but
it's funny that you mentioned that because when Craig pulled it out, my first thought in my head was like, oh, an album where the cover is better than the album. Like
that's fair.
And that's not meant that, honestly, like I don't say that as a jab. Like it's just a fantastic album cover. I really like that art. Kind of similar to Casey, but even less so, I guess. I listened to it and it was like, oh, this is cool, but I guess evidence shows that it wasn't enough to like pull me back in to give it more listens. But you're right, she had like that album was hugely hyped. She had she did a guest spot on the Kid Cudi album, and it's kind of, from everything that I've read and seen people say, it's like one of their favorite songs on the album, if not their favorite. So a lot of people are loving that too. But yeah, that album to me is like this year's, like there always seems to be some kind of like indie darling every year, and in years past it's like St. Vincent or I don't know, like
even Julian had one of those years, and Bon Iver had one of those years. Yeah.
And so it's just like I remember one year it was Carrie and Lowell was like the huge, like, oh my gosh, everyone. And I love that. That was on my list too. But like, to me, that was the one this year that everyone was like going ape shit over. And normally those albums, I don't know if it's a psychological thing in my mind for me to push back and be like, oh, it's stupid, I don't like that. Like I try naturally, that's my way, because I hate when people like hype stuff up and then I listen to it and it's like not that great. So I try not to be like that. Casey has an ongoing joke with me about that, about how I like instead of just being like, oh, I didn't really get it, like I automatically like, oh, it's stupid, that's lame, I don't like it. You know, I go with like way over the top, and which is really not how I feel. That album was cool. It didn't pull me in a whole lot.
Speaking of which, Scott, that is a perfect segue for a band we've had this exact argument about at my number 9, Waxahachie.
There you go.
So this is her album Saint Cloud was my number 9. What's funny is this is an album that I heard and I'm like, I really like this. This is really good. There's no chance in hell it gets in my top 10 because it's just not whatever. But then I just kept on listening to it over and over and over and over again. It was just something I kept on going to while I was in the car or whatever. Yeah, I really liked Out in Storm. It was like a fantastic record, and so I was primed to come back and hear her new one. This one's a little bit more like country, I guess. Like it's not country. It's just she took kind of some inspiration, I think, from she said like Loretta Lynn and Dusty Springfield, I think, and some other things. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like it. It's got kind of a little bit of an old country vibe. Kelly likes it. It's mellow.
I should give it a listen.
Huh?
I should give it a listen. I know you. I think I don't know if that was the album that you had told me to listen to, or if it was one of the other ones, but I don't even remember.
It has like some of my favorite like songs of hers. They're just some of my favorite songs. Period. Like 2 of them are amazing. So anyway, when this came out, I was kind of stoked on it, and it was like, yeah, you know, it is what it is. Like it's cool, but I just kept on coming back to it and lately these like top 10 lists for me have been way more about what I listen to the most rather than what I think is like the most important. Hence my last year's picking White Reaper, which that album still brings me joy on a weekly basis. So it's just like, I know it's not the best, I know it's not whatever, but that's what I enjoy the most. So like that's why that one got in there above some other ones that are probably quote unquote better records. But
I totally agree with that. That, speaking of great album covers, I didn't get a good look at it, but that looked like a great album cover. I don't show it again.
Oh, her on the
it looks very country.
That's a great album cover. I love that.
It's gone country.
Not on the license plate.
Nice.
The name of the record, I think.
Oh, St. Cloud, yeah. That's rad. I love old pickup trucks like that. You see them all the time here in Texas. But yeah, that's a cool album cover. I'll have to go back to that because I didn't hate what I listened to. I think it just didn't grab me, but I don't think that was the one that I listened to. I think I listened to a different one.
It's stuff that I typically listen to, but like I saw her open up for, I got the shirt on too. I saw her open up for Jawbreaker, and that's where I kind of really like she kind of rocked out a little bit more at that show, and I was like, this is really good, and it kind of primed me for liking it. So anyway, who's up next?
I'll go with my number 9. My number 9 is an album I did listen to a lot also. I love Owen a lot. And this album, I think it's his best thing that he's done. And I think it's because he put a lot of emotional energy into it, having just gotten divorced. The album is like super sad. It's a big punishing record after The Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers, but it is a punishing record emotionally. And I would listen to it and it would like bring me joy, but also just be like, of my top records, it is the sad record. But it's also just super beautiful. Also one of my favorite pressings. I love like a Coke bottle with something inside of it. Like it's really simple, but I love these kind of blob pressings, and big fan of polyvinyl. I decided this year to finish my Owen discography. So I most recently ordered the rest of the records that I need from it. It got stuck in transit from the holiday, but that's fine. But it's a beautiful record. It's super sad. It's definitely something that I kept going back to. I slept a lot to Owen music. Like I would put it on shuffle, all Owen on Spotify, and just let it put me to sleep. Not in a bad way, but it's calming music to me. So yeah, that was my number 9. Did either of you give that a listen?
No.
Sad music in the repertoire this year for reasons that I'll talk about later.
Okay.
Yeah. What's his name? What's his name? Tim?
Mike Kinsella.
Mike Kinsella. Is there a Tim Kinsella too?
Yeah. Okay. He does Joan of Arc.
They brothers?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, yeah. I'm honestly not a huge fan. Like that first American football album's cool. Um, I've never really liked much else that they've done, that band or Owen. Like I won't profess to have heard every Owen album or even delve deep into any of them, but it's not really my thing. I'm not huge into that kind of emo.
That's fine.
It's
It's
called
good.
emo.
Yeah, it's sad bitch music for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also some good like chill. It's also just good chill energy to me. I really like
Mhm.
it. I've joked that he's my Jack Johnson, where a lot of it kind of sounds the same, but it's still
Yeah.
calming to me because I'm used to it. So
Yeah. That's cool.
yeah. What did you have, Scott, at number 9?
Um, well, this is one of the ones I don't have the record for. Um, so I'll just I'll pull it up on my phone and well, it's not going to pull up a big picture anyway. But this is my kind of emo, the Casket Lottery short songs for end times. Um, I feel like the ongoing thing with, at least with Casey, is I always say like, I don't really like emo. I'm not. It's like that's not really my thing. Um, the truth is that I like bands and I like a lot of the good. I don't want to say good stuff, but the more popular stuff. Like I love the Get Up Kids, or really their first albums. I like Clarity by Jimmy Eat World. I like that first American football album. Um, I like the Casket Lottery a lot. But I know the Casket Lottery are considered emo, but they kind of ride that line with post-hardcore too. The like DC, like Drive Like Jehu type stuff, Fugazi. They're not quite as angular as those bands, but but the vocals are more similar to that. They're kind of yelly. And I don't know, I just kind of always have gravitated towards that style. But them, I loved their last one, Real Fear, which came out in like 2013, I think. Which on No Sleep, and this one's on Wiretap, which is a really cool. That's the label that Spanish Love Songs got started on, and there's a bunch of other really great bands on that. And the guy Rob is, in our kind of vinyl community, he's a really cool guy too. So they have a ton of great bands, but this album's on that, and it's really good, man. It's like they have 5 albums now, and all 5 of them are really, really good. This one is it's in the same style. It's just kind of catchy, but kind of aggressive. And one thing I really enjoy about them is, I mean, I'm not a musician, so I think a lot of times for me, bass players get a little lost for me. But there are certain bands, Thrice being another, where I just love the bass. And Casket Lottery, I don't know the guy's name, but he always has great bass lines. And whoever produces their records, I don't know if it's the same guy every time, but they always have it. It's like just upfront enough to hear it, but not to overpower what's going on with everything else. And I don't know, I love it. There's not really a weak song on the whole album, and it's definitely one that I think had it come out earlier in the year, it maybe would have even been higher on my list. But yeah, it's a really good album. I just need to pick up the record for it. I haven't done that yet, but I will. Fantastic band, one of my favorite in the emo genre for sure. Did you guys give that one a listen at all?
I liked it. I need to go back. They're kind of a band that I came around really late to. I only started listening to them because they were going to be opening for the Get Up Kids, and they were just one of those bands that fell into my post-college broke, couldn't buy every CD hole, And like when I was more a fan of labels, Second Nature definitely was not one of the ones that was super on my radar at the time. Like I think their original stuff came out on Second Nature, and
Yeah,
so yeah, I only really diving deeper into their older stuff. So like when something new came out, I just don't think I was ready to give it a lot of time because I'm still listening to Choose Bronze and Moving Mountains and that kind of stuff. So anyway, but yeah, I listened to it and I was like, this is good. And it just kind of fell off a little bit in the mix of everything.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever listened to the Casket Lottery, but I did just put check it out next to Casket Lottery on your list. So I will definitely give that a listen, just to
Nice.
make sure that I do. So I'm not just like bullshitting through this and not actually going to follow up with some of the music that you guys suggest. So hell
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess I'll go with my number 8 since
Yeah,
we've
go
all.
ahead.
Okay, cool. So my number 8 is another one that I do not have. The next two I don't have the records for. But I believe I told you, well, I know I told you multiple times to check him out. But Bill Murray, Eggy Pocket, which is kind of definitely in the same vein as Dance Gavin Dance, like in the sense of like just good pop music. And I mean, he certainly throws a lot of different genres in like Dance Gavin Dance does. It's not as noodly as they are, but yeah, it's just a really good, it's short. I think it's only 8 songs or 7 songs maybe. He's if anyone's unfamiliar with him, it's Johnny Frank from Attack Attack, who I never really liked. I never really got into the whole crabcore thing. But his solo stuff, Bill Murray, Bilmuri, it's just really good. It's like, it's almost like Post Malone mixed with pop punk mixed with
It's weird
some like,
shit.
yeah,
It's weird.
it's weird. I would have thought that I would have liked, because he screams a lot on it too. Like
Yeah.
there's heavier parts, but actually my favorite stuff is when he's doing kind of more of the like Post Malone, like poppy kind of stuff. That's kind of more of my favorite stuff. But that whole album is really good. Um it's just, yeah, it's uplifting. The lyrics are, he talks a lot about mental health stuff. And just this year for me especially has been a lot of hard, more so than ever for me, I think. Well, maybe not ever, but recently. So that one was really good. I just love that album. It's my favorite thing that he's done. He's only been making music for like 4 years under that name, but he has like 9 albums. He puts out like 2 or 3 a year. But it's always different and it's always changing. But this one was my favorite thing. It was really, really good. So highly recommend. What did you think of it, Craig? I know you gave it
After you were like egging us on a bit to check it out, I think you focused more on me than I think Casey.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be Casey's thing. No offense to Casey or to Bill Murray. It's just like, know your audience. I figured it was something to be more that you would be into.
Yeah. What was that, Casey?
I said Scott knows his audience. I am not into him at all.
Yeah. So like I dug some of it. Some of it was pretty cool. He is a big like John Mess fan too. So like there's a lot of the Dance Gavin Dance connection there too. But there was a lot that I really enjoyed, and like I went through a bunch of it. It's not necessarily something that I like went back to, but I do see like a lot of folks giving him hype. But yeah, it's definitely not like stuff that was going to be high on my list. But yeah, I could enjoy it, and I think that's also because I do enjoy Post Malone, and I know that you recently became a fan of Post Malone.
Yeah, he's so good.
So
I feel dumb for kind of like taking so long to get into him, but yeah, there was it seemed like a lot of the people that I would like suggest it to, they're like, it's okay, and
yeah,
it was kind of a bummer. But then like I think I posted it to my stories, and a couple people came out of the woodwork and were like, oh yeah, I've been loving it. Like Fern was one of them.
I see a lot of people share Bill Murray. It might just be the people that I connected with.
Oh, okay.
So.
Fern and I talked about it for a bit. Is it Fern Fuentes?
Yeah, Fernando.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a really good guy.
About it for a little bit, and maybe
my album was his album of the year.
Oh, nice.
Which is very nice to hear. Also, thank you. Like if you're watching, buddy, I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Someone listened to it.
I liked your album, man.
I appreciate that. A lot.
I told you, I gave you feedback.
You did. You both did.
Yeah.
I also like that record. Like your album was, I don't know. I never mean it to be insulting when I'm like shockingly good, but
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that
because it was. I like the stuff before, especially like someone was identified more with the sentiment than the music. Whereas this one, I was like, oh, the sentiment is really good and the music is really good, and Craig is improving in his delivery of things. Like it was just overall, like you can tell more. You're just getting better at what you do. Like long shot.
I didn't mean this to be let's talk about my record, but I appreciate it, and I'm sorry that I brought it up. But thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. I love
I'll,
hearing that.
I'll popcorn over to you, Craig.
Oh, okay.
Your number 8.
My number 8 is a record that in like my, I don't know if we have a lot of overlap in our connections on Instagram, but this album got a lot of attention. The new Movements record. I'm a big fan of Movements. Their album Feel Something is really good. I honestly wasn't sure how they were going to follow that up because it's a really good like new wave of emo realm, indie emo, I don't know what to call them, but in that same vein, this album's pretty good. I enjoy it. It's good stuff. I shoveled snow to it the other day. It's just like good. It touches on a lot of different topics more than just mental health like the first album did. This one also has like a good vibe toward like human connection, because like especially in a year where we didn't get a lot of human contact, there's a lot of good, like there's literally a song called Skin to Skin, so it's a little sexier, a little groovier. I really enjoyed the album. I also got an orange pressing of it, which I am a big fan of. I gave away my tricolor pressing in a giveaway because I saw them post this one. So I was like, I'm gonna get this because I love orange records. But I really liked it. I think it's a fun. I didn't really like the singles at first when they were getting posted. Katie and I were both just like, all right, whatever. But then in the context of the album, it all made sense. The day it came out, I went golfing and I listened to it like 3 times back to back while I was golfing. So it was that's a good sign because I didn't want to switch it. So I was really, really involved in that record, and I think a lot of people in my feeds really enjoyed it as well. So I saw it pop up a lot. So I don't know if either of you dug into it.
That's a good.
Yeah, I saw it pop up all on your feed a lot, and I think you posted it quite a bit on your stories too. And I never checked it out. I've now hearted it on Spotify to check out. I don't know anything about them, but I'll check it out for sure.
I would start with their first album, but then definitely come back to this one.
Okay.
I need to give them another go. I've tried it a few times, or I've tried listening to them a few times, and like nothing ever grabs me. Not that it's bad, but I keep on seeing it pop up so much that it's probably, I don't know, time for another revisit.
It might not be, and I keep thinking about it, might not be for either of you, just because I think it is. This is going to sound ageist, might just be for the newer generation of folks that are into like that genre of music. So, because it is kind of like, I don't know, melodramatic isn't the right word for it, but that's the only one that's coming to mind right now. I don't know, but it does have a lot of good messages in it, and they're big on the mental health stuff. So that's why I dug into it.
It doesn't sound ageist at all. I just wanted to affirm that. What that basically means is that for people my age, we've already heard this shit done many, many times, much, much better.
That's a better way of putting it.
This is not as impressive to me. I've been here. I heard bands that were, playing with mine 20 years ago who were just as good. It's one of those things where, it's funny that it's not necessarily age, but it's just, I think, exposure to music. Like I've discovered myself getting less and less into new bands unless they're doing something new, because I just keep on wanting to go back to stuff from 15 years ago, It just, me and Scott have talked about that. It just kind of happens because I have these albums that not only are I consider great, but I have this intense like personal connection to over the last decade. And it's like, I just kind of want to spend time with those albums sometimes.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So anyway, this one I just called an audible because I was looking at my 7 and 8, and I was like, my 8 should be number 7 and my 7 should be number 8. So
okay,
one that I told you guys about, which I think Craig liked at least one song on it. I don't think it's probably gonna be in your top 10 or even in your top 50, but it's the Barely Civil record, which I just really enjoyed. There's it's one of those albums where it's on Take This to Heart, which is, I think they're releasing something else soon that I like, but songs like North Newell and Box for My Organs were just excellent songs. It was kind of a little bit hard for me to classify these guys, so Oh, I just found myself. It's again one of those things where I'm like, I just found myself continually putting this on and really enjoying it. So
Yeah, Take This to Heart is also putting out Man Dancing, or just recently put out Man Dancing, which I think you would enjoy if you hadn't heard it.
I still need to check that out. And then I just made another order from them. I don't know what it is, and I'm because I ordered too much
Good,
stuff.
good. No, I like that Barry the Civil album. I did not go back to it more than I think the one time I listened to it, but it was good.
Yeah.
It's still like because you I think targeted me with the suggestion, so I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it, and I enjoy a lot of the stuff that's in that like similar vein. And I have friends who have had records put out for Take This to Heart, so I trust that label a lot with what they put out. So yeah.
I've literally never heard that name before till you just said it right now. Never seen that cover till you just showed it right now. I just looked them up on Spotify and then went to the fans also like section. Literally do not know any of these bands except for the very last one that's listed, which is Dikembe.
Which just missed my top 14. I love that Dikembe record.
Who are the other bands that mentioned, Scott?
Record Setter. I have heard the name I Love Your Lifestyle mentioned before, but
it was just mentioned.
Yeah, I would just have that as my number 10.
That's in when
Scott was paying attention.
Inside, Sinai Vessel, Weave, The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Kick, which is a terrible fucking name.
I don't know a lot of these either.
Teenage Halloween, Golfer, Thank You, I'm Sorry, Car Talk, No Thank You. A lot of thank yous.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Oceanator, Man Dancing, Empty Country, Second Grade, Ogbert the Nerd, Young Jesus, Wild Pink,
Ogbert the Nerd.
I just listened to that Ogbert record.
Yeah.
My thing. One of our friends, me and Scott have another thread with another friend that we're constantly that we're into. So that one got brought up by Brett, I think. And I was
that one is constantly me Brett did like Bill Murray actually, but that one's constantly you guys talking about all the great emo bands that you're listening to, and I'm like, I don't like this kind of music. Stop recommending it.
I think you both would like that Man Dancing record. I just shared it in my top albums thing. It was like in my 30s, but it's but it's really good. It's like for fans of like Animal Flag or Manchester Orchestra, stuff like that.
I think it's my turn to go twice.
Yes,
go ahead. So there might be an overlap here with Craig, or it might just be in his top 20 because I just checked your top 50 and it wasn't in there. But the other Take This to Heart record I just ordered they just did a new pressing of the Rufio, perhaps, I suppose. So I ordered that. I was trying to get the Wax Mage variant, but of course it didn't go up at the time they said. It went up early, and so of course I missed out.
Yeah.
Always early.
An early record of the year that I definitely came back to way more in the last couple months, despite thinking it was wonderful the first time I heard it, and like actually probably my favorite record by them, which is Caspian. On Circles, like it went kind of new places for me, where I was like, a lot of post rock can start sounding really samey and kind of like whatever. And this is one of the most interesting like kind of instrumental rock records I've ever heard. And plus having the song with the singer from Pianos on it was, that's just a fantastic song. Great record. Great. I really love the album cover. It's got kind of this embossed or letterpress feel to it. It's a really nice copy. It sounds great. They're all on it's a 45. So, just sounds even a little bit better. So I really enjoyed On Circles by Caspian.
I'm going to talk about it later, but it is definitely one of, like, Caspian kind of like this year cemented themselves as like my favorite instrumental, like post-rock band. Like I have all their stuff now, and I just absolutely, I can put it on no matter the mood and just be like, yeah, this is incredible music. And I feel like they get put aside by some folks who listen to post-rock stuff. Like, it's just like, yeah, Caspian's good, but like I really think that they're pretty great. So and they're from this area, so like I'm used to seeing some of the guys at gigs and stuff, and it's just really cool to just be like, that 7 foot tall dude, yeah, he's in Caspian. It's really wild. He's like 6'8", but still like fucking tall. Yeah, it's really funny because I was at a gig once. We were at just some underground bar in Salem, Mass. And he came in. I don't actually know his name. He came in and he went to give one of my friends, Jess, the singer from the band Old Soul, a hug. And Jess is 5'2", and he just like engulfed her in a hug. But yeah, Scott, did you listen to the album?
I did. I think it was I was on the Vinylside chat with you, and I think you brought it up, and I was at that time like, oh yeah, I know Caspian, and like, so when I first got into post rock in like 2006, they were one of the bands that like I was really big into downloading torrents at that time. So like I was like trying to find as much as I could, and I download like obviously Explosions in the Sky, and got into This Will Destroy You, and God is an Astronaut, and like those bands are still like my favorites in the genre. Caspian was one that I downloaded at the time, and I can't remember, is it Four Trees? Is that one of their albums? That was the one that I listened to, and it was like, yeah, like it was fine, and nothing ever really grabbed me though. And then they signed a Triple Crown, and it's funny that you say that like you think they get slept on a lot, because I feel like they're the most hyped post rock band out there, and I'm like, are they really that good though? Like, I never really like even that one for, is it Waking Season? I never really thought that was all that great. I mean, it wasn't bad by any means. It just never grabbed me. But after that Vinylside chat, I went back and listened to the new one. I really do like that one. It's really good. And I'll probably end up getting it on vinyl eventually. Um, but yeah, the song with, is it Kyle Duffy? Is that his name?
Durfee.
Durfee. That's a really good song. That's a really good album. I really like that album. It's easily my favorite thing that I've heard by them. I won't profess it to be their best. I'm not a super fan for them at all, but it's the first thing that I've listened to them where I was like, oh, I actually like this, and I would listen to this like on my own. So, and I have, like when I work, I like that. It's a good album. So yeah, I really dug that album.
Yeah, I think that they get a lot. Like, if I can explain this, I think this may be what Craig was getting at. I think they get a lot of hype from people who don't listen to a lot of instrumental music, and I think for the people who are super into post rock, they get shit on. They're like the Fallout Boy of it. Like it's just like
the disco.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like, they're not real, because they have kind of more mass appeal.
Yeah, because it's very accessible post rock.
It's more accessible, but this one I was just like, man, like I know they're one of their guitar players, like a classically trained guitarist. The guitar work on this, I was just like, that is fantastic.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, it's a good album. I really like it.
Scott, did you want to go next?
Yeah. So the next album was another one that I don't have yet, and Craig, you and I talked about this because it was a little pricey, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend that much money. But Good Tiger, Raised in a Doomsday Cult. This was one of the ones that you had introduced me to, Craig, earlier in the year.
I knew my audience on this one. I was like, Scott, I think you will like this.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember you suggested that one and Stand Atlantic at the same time, and I thought the way you described them, I thought, oh, the Stand Atlantic is going to be the one that I'm more into. I did not like that album at all, and I've tried multiple times. I just don't get it. But then I listened to Good Tiger, and I was like, this is rad. And I didn't like. I've heard you do it multiple times. I just, and it's fine. We all hear albums in different ways, but I don't get your description of it, which I think you had said it was like metal.
Chill
you said,
technical metal.
Yeah, you said progressive metal, and I don't get the metal at all. Like, to me, the best way to describe, if someone was like, what do they sound like? I'd be like, oh, they sound like Circa Survive. Like, that's like, I'm not saying they're a ripoff, but they're definitely in that vein. Like, you listen to them, you're like, oh, well, they at least have a passing interest in that band. Like,
I would also say they're kind of like an accessible Mars Volta.
I don't get that at all. See, I don't hear that.
So we were in the record store last weekend, and someone was like, "Is this Mars Volta?" And I was like, "No, this is Good Tiger." And they're like, "Oh, all right, I like this." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm glad you do."
Yeah, it's however you want to classify it. It's really, really good.
They're unclassifiable, Scott.
I like it, and the first half of the record is really good. The second half is fantastic. I really like the second half a lot better than the first half, and the first half is really good too. So, yeah, it was just one that I kept going back to a lot. Um, the last quarter, the last 3 months of the year, I didn't listen to it a ton, so it maybe dropped a little bit. It would have been higher in my list earlier in the year, but it's just yeah, it's a really good album. I know you said their earlier stuff is also really good. I haven't gone back and listened to that yet, but um, it's just
All three of their albums are great. They really are.
super melodic. It's interesting. It's yeah, I guess I'd say like comparing it to what I said about Dance Gavin Dance, where I was like, oh, it's just like good pop. Like this one has a little bit more like meat to it, I think. And that I know that sounds like a diss to Dance Gavin Dance, and it's not. It's just I feel like this is closer to like if you take a record like that Casket Lottery one that I think is a little bit more heady and serious. This is closer to that than it is to Dance Gavin Dance, but it's good. I like it. It's a fun record. I like that that all the vocals are melodic. Like there's not a whole lot of screaming in it, which I like for that kind of music. But yeah, it's really good. I dug it a lot. I'll
I'm
probably
gonna
end up getting probably
uh,
today because Matt said that was on 20% off.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about it in a minute. Casey, did you
Oh,
check
cool.
it out?
Yeah, and I just finally figured out what band they really reminded me of, and maybe this is like completely out of left field because this band wasn't very big, but I remember for Type in Stereo we reviewed this band. They remind me a lot of Icarus the Owl.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
Portland band.
Portland band,
Another
yeah,
band that to me sounds like Circus Survive.
sure, yeah, and like so I don't know that style of music. Like I have phenomenal respect for it, but like I tend to gravitate, I think, more towards I don't know what to call it, but like simplicity in songwriting. Like for me, I always really appreciate when a band can like get something done with less. You know, like if that makes sense, it's like
Hmm.
some authors
It
do it.
does.
Like it's like to me, like the great authors like can say more in less words. Where like to me, like a lot of bands, like I really appreciate, and it's gonna come up here in a second, but like just where it's like, oh man, like they didn't like this isn't that it's in my number one. Like this isn't my hardest thing to play, but this is perfect. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
type thing. And so I think I gravitate in a way from like super noodly, unless it's like ultra catchy, like Tiny Moving Parts or something like that. And so
yeah,
it needs to have one of those other things that I really appreciate about other types of music to get me going. So like I
Yeah.
would never slam or say like, oh, this isn't good. It's just, you know, like it doesn't. The main thing that it has going for it isn't something I just prefer, and then it doesn't have a lot of the other things I like about other types of music. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just ends.
One of the bands I didn't mention this. I should have when I was talking about Dance Gavin Dance. That record reminds me a lot of is Minus the Bear. Like it's definitely like I remember listening to it when it first came out, and I was like, man, this has a lot of Minus the Bear vibes to it. I mean, it's certainly heavier, but like I felt like it going along with what we were saying about it being more poppy, it reminded me a lot of Minus the Bear at times. And this Good Tiger record does a little bit too. There's a little bit of that feel. And I like what you said, Casey, about like do more with less. And I typically agree with that. Like Craig and I were talking earlier before you were on about like bands like Chan and how there's just they have this fan base of kids that just love that, and then I don't fucking get it. It's so boring to me. Like okay, cool, you can play your guitars, great. Like that does not make a good song to me. Like do like have good songs. That's what makes good songs, not that you can play your guitar. And I felt like Good Tiger was they have that like progressive sound for sure where it's noodly, but I also feel like the songs were there to back up the progressive part about it, which I agree with you because that keeps me back with a lot of like progressive either rock or metal or whatever. Like there's only a couple bands where I'm like, oh okay, like Between the Buried and Me, it's like they actually have good songs that are, you know, have, you know, good melody and good parts and just are well written versus like let me masturbate on my guitar for you for a good hour.
So yeah, talking about Tron real quick, very quickly, but like to me, it's uh, bands like that, like where they go crazy. Like I saw Chon when Gates opened up for him, and I'd never even heard of
That's
him.
what I just mentioned to Craig. I just said the same thing to him. I was like, I saw them on that tour, the Deer Hunter, and it was like
So impressive. Like I was like, holy shit, these guys. But then like 3 songs in, it started to get like a little boring because it's just like at some point you can't differentiate. It's kind of to me like what I imagine because I've tried before. Like, yeah, I get it. Like Ulysses by James Joyce and Gravity's Rainbow by Pynchon are amazing novels in technical position, but they're not enjoyable reads. It's like, and so that's what I kind of equate it to. It's just like this is unreadable, like, or I don't have no idea what's going on.
right,
It's wildly impressive, but I would never come back to it.
right.
Anyway, Craig?
Cool. Scott didn't like this album, but at number 7, I had Stand Atlantic. The main reason I liked this album so much is because I wanted to listen to music that put me in a good mood this year, and this album put me in a good mood. Like the singles that came out were choice. Like they were perfectly picked for to be standout singles for this year. Katie first showed me this band like last year or something like that with their first album. Then I kind of just went off the deep end with them. And the first song that came out this year was called Shh, just Shh. And that song
I'm being quiet. Tell me the name already.
Yeah, no, it's great, right? It is just really good pop punk, in my opinion. Really, a lot of good feelings, good vibes, and there is. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I ran to it a lot this year, which just like kind of amped me up a little bit. It's a really good driving record because the songs just kind of like it's like a 30-minute record. Like it's a tight 11 tracks, 30 minutes. Like they get in, they get out, they do their thing, and then it's done. And I love that. And I'm starting to appreciate, even though I'm in a mid of a big Between the Buried and Me zone lately, I've been also big into like quick albums. Like I want it in and out of my ears as quick as possible, and I want it as good and as solid as possible. Another album that did that this year was that new Dry Jacket album. Fantastic record. Also, like not a lot of bells and whistles, kind of like what Casey was getting on about. Like I want it like simple yet great, and that's what that Dry Jacket album was. And it's about to be posted on my Instagram. Probably when we're done with this, it'll be posted on my Instagram. It's not in my top 10, sadly, but did either so Scott didn't like that, but Casey, did you listen to it?
Maybe it was like a misbilling for me because it's like I was just now while you guys were muted, like when you were talking about Good Tiger, I had to go back and just kind of remind myself of exactly it sounded like I was just listening to Stand Atlantic, and like to me it's just way more in line with just pop rather than pop punk. Like if it would have probably gone, in a few places just into that standard like upbeat pop punk beat instead of kind of mellowing out and letting her voice shine through, I probably would have liked it a lot more. Like I'm just a sucker for just like that, like just something that just kind of gets moving a little bit, like with a real hook, and like I probably would have been more in for it. But I mean, I got Good Tiger and that I'm gonna listen to on the drive home and while I'm walking around today. So I'm gonna take my son on a nice long walk since it's a beautiful day out. So I'm gonna listen to it and kind of give him another go and see if anything sticks. So that'll be on there.
Cool.
Yeah, dude, I think I've told you this before, but you always have a way. I think because you play guitar, you have a better sense of like why you like things and why you don't like things better than I do because I don't play anything. But you explained it really well. I think if it had been, because she's got a really cool voice and the music isn't bad, but I think if it had strayed more into the pop punk side of it versus the straight up pop, I would have liked it. Although I do like pop. But the two things I wanted to say were number one, another great album cover. That album cover is rad.
Super cool.
I really do like it. And number two is the one thing that I could put my finger on that I didn't like about it was it sounded extremely, and I know this is going to sound like a diss, and I'm just being honest. It sounds really juvenile, like
100%. I'm not going to disagree with that. They're young. They're like 22 years old.
like when you hear like Kids Bop, that's what it sounded like to me. It sounded like Kids
Hell
Bop.
Yeah.
there's something going back to the like the generational thing. I think there's something about like this album was not made for someone who's 37. Like,
That's
and
fair.
I know you're 32, Craig, but like 32,
Yeah, 33.
33, which is probably not for you either, but you are also, I think you have a connection to like Gen Z that's like just because of your job and that, like I think you're kind of closer to that generation than Casey or I are. And I think that was kind of like, this it's not bad, it's just not, it was not meant for me, you know?
Hmm.
Because I don't think it's the fact that it was pop, because that Emarosa album last year was pure pop and I fucking love that album still to this day. RIP to them because their singers.
Reasons. Yeah, yeah. Just I think I might have only suggested it to you as a soft suggestion to both of you, so I wasn't sure
Yeah.
either of you would really like
I
it.
didn't
But
hate it. It had redeeming qualities for sure.
yeah, I'll jump right into my number 6. Mostly because there's not a whole lot more to say about it, but it is Good Tiger Raised by a Doomsday Cult. Raised in a Doomsday Cult, which is like my favorite album title of the year. Fantastic, but it's my favorite album title of the year, but my least favorite album cover. I hate this album cover. It is really hard to read,
Yeah.
and it is just like it's a bunch of flowers in a hallway, which is fine. I'm not hating on it, but it is very poorly. Like when it first was announced, I was like, I'm not gonna listen to that. But then I
Yeah.
did, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I ended up getting a record of it because it's orange and white. This side better than this side because that's how these smashes turn out. Um, but I absolutely love this album. It is like when Scott was talking about it, and I kind of joked around about it being unclassifiable. I think that that's pretty valid. I think that that sticks. It's hard. It's like it's chill rock. I don't know what to call it else, but it's just really good music to me. Another one of those albums that I could just like put on, chill the hell out, and enjoy the music. And that guy's voice is insane, so I just really, really
Yeah, it really is.
connected with it a lot.
Like I would say like I understand what you're saying about genre, like it's hard to classify it, but I would say if you like, you know, what
If you like the bands that we already
Crazy Owl
suggested for it, yeah, Circus
or
Survive,
Survive or Hail the Sun or
Hail to the Sun.
Hail to the Sun or whatever, like
It's Hail the Sun.
Hail, yeah. Like whatever, like all those types of bands, if you like them, I feel like you would like Good Tiger. I'm not necessarily a super fan of that genre. I just think Good Tiger, at least this album, is one of the better versions of that style. They did it really well.
Cool. Casey, do you want to go next?
So yeah, Retirement Party. Did you listen to it, Craig?
Yeah, I did. It's good. And I love Counterintuitive, so I support them.
Counterintuitive had last year with Origami Angel they signed, which has become one of, I've listened to that album a ton since last year, rather than higher on my list from last year than number 7 or 8. But I don't know, I just kind of dig that it's kind of like alternative. I also like, it sounds, it's probably like lame to be like, oh yeah, female. Well, I mean, like it is a female vocalist, and I always really dig female vocals. But I think a lot of times, you get into kind of that territory where it's like, oh yeah, we got a female vocalist, and a lot of times the popular bands are girls who can really just sing and like they have a really beautiful voice. Whereas I think her delivery is more along like it's more of like a slacker delivery, rather, but it's awesome and I really like it. And it's not so much like, it's way more of just like a slacker vibe band, and I just don't see a lot of female fronted bands going that route. World's Greatest Dad did it a couple years ago, and I liked that a lot as well too. So I don't know, it just, the songs Ebb, No Tide, Compensation, like I just ended up liking every song and constantly throwing it on throughout the year. So that's why it's my number 6.
I have a copy of the album before this, and I didn't dig into the new one as much as the last one, Somewhat Literate, which is one of my favorite album titles of like that year, at least. Somewhat Literate is a great album title. But yeah, no, it's good stuff. And I get exactly what you're saying, like slacker-ish kind of rock, indie rock or whatever. And I was going to suggest World's Greatest Dad in the same context as well. So that vibe, I don't know how much Scott will like it, but I think he could. I think you could like it, Scott. I believe in you.
Yeah,
You will
I've
as
never
a Casey
heard.
band.
What's that?
You would classify it as a Casey band.
It is a Casey band.
I've never heard. I watch myself. I don't say that anymore. I know it gets under your skin. So, but I've never heard of this band. Another great album cover. That's a really cool album cover. I just hearted it to check it out. Yeah, that looks really cool. I mean, it's kind of similar to the shirt that I got
Yeah,
on, but
that's cool.
yeah, I don't know much about them, but I mean, what you're describing is sounds interesting. I looked at some of the fans also like, and it was like, like I know I've listened to some of these bands, none of them I particularly loved, but like it's a lot of the bands like that I hear you talk about, Craig. Like, well, actually, both of you, like Max Seal and Heart Attack Band and Sports and Origami Angel. So like I don't dislike those bands, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan either. Oso Oso is another one. Mom Jeans. So I'll check them out for sure though. Charmer was the first one too.
I think they oftentimes too, like a lot of those bands are just on counterintuitive. So I think when they say it's also like they give you a lot of the same label stuff, not necessarily sound alike.
It's all algorithm too, like what other fans listen to. It's not necessarily like, oh, they also, you know, yeah. I'll give it a listen though for sure.
Also, nice. If you haven't listened to that Charmer record, it's fantastic.
I gave it a listen.
It is a fantastic record.
Hey guys, let's not talk about this right now.
All right, sorry. Go ahead, Scott. What's your number 6?
Okay, number 6. So I kind of rediscovered my love for this band this year in a very huge way, to where I've always really liked them, but I wouldn't have said they're like one of my favorite bands. And now I was thinking about it the other night. I'm like, they're one of my favorite, at least favorite metalcore bands. But the return of Misery Signals, Ultraviolet. I loved this album. It has Jesse, their first singer, on it. I guess Carl quit for whatever reason. I don't know why. I didn't care to look it up, but I love that guy's voice, man. Of Malice and the Magnum Heart is like such a crazy, awesome, I think underappreciated heavy album when you think about albums from that time. Like I think it came out in 2004, and it's so good. And so having him back on the vocals was really exciting. When I first heard it, I didn't even realize it was him, because it actually sounds like kind of a cross between him and Carl, their other vocalist. I don't know. That first album, he has a really distinct delivery, and he does it a little bit on this album, but it's a little bit more like, I think Casey, I suggested to you, and you're like, he kind of has the what'd you say? Like the run-of-the-mill metalcore vocals, like they didn't really stand out to you, which was disappointing, because I think the first album with him on it, like the vocals are awesome, and that's the one where I was like, you need to check that one out, because I think it'd be right up your alley. But just that.
This was a bad year for me in heavy music. So
yeah.
I'll talk about that as to why. Like I just didn't get into anything.
So I actually quite the opposite for me. Like this was a great year for heavy music in me. This album and another album I'll talk about in a bit. But melodic metalcore, it's just it's so good. I really love the whole album. There's a lot of songs with like uplifting lyrics, and it's just, man, return to form. Like Absent Light, their last one, was weird. I like it. It's my least favorite of theirs for sure. They did a bunch of weird stuff, and you could tell that they recorded it in a bunch of different areas of the country, or so like it's cool, but it didn't sound like them at all. It was like,
it's disjointed. It's a disjointed album, but I enjoy it.
I like it too, and it has some redeeming qualities, but it's my least favorite. I felt like this was closer to what I love about them. Like it was closer to like what you'd hear on Mirrors or Controller, their earlier stuff. So yeah, it's a great album. Just really pretty but heavy at the same time. yeah, I loved it, and this was one that jumped up. It wasn't even on my top 10 for until a couple weeks ago, and I was like, you know what, I listened to this one a lot, and it just kind of moved up, and I'm like, this, I think 7 is a good spot, or 6 is a good spot for it, because I just listened to it a heck of a lot. So I know, Craig, you kind of liked it, right?
Liked it. It was in my like just outside of my top 50.
Oh, okay.
Primarily because I didn't find myself going back to it a lot. But I enjoyed it for what it was. It was a new Misery Signals album, which
Right.
big fan of Misery Signals. Mirrors. I got into them at Mirrors, so I actually that's where
Same.
I knew them. And Controller is like I contest one of the best metalcore records that exists.
It's so
Um,
good.
it's a perfect album to me, and
Yeah.
I don't say that a lot about a lot of metal albums. So
Right.
it's like that and the End of Heartache, in my opinion. Those are like
Yeah.
perfect to me.
For sure.
And so I guess I just keep wanting them to put out Controller too, and
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, and I need to be okay with that. I
Right.
also would have loved 2 more songs from this album. Like
It's,
9
yeah.
was like a little, and then one of them is instrumental, right, or
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so just
Yeah.
like give me 2 more songs on this album, and I probably would have
Yeah.
loved it a little bit more.
Like the
Um,
fourth song almost sounds like an interlude too. Like
yeah,
it doesn't sound like a normal song, but yeah, it's yeah, I know what you mean. I also came into them on Mirrors. I remember seeing the video for the failsafe on, I think, like, I think it was the Headbangers Ball, like when Jamie Jasta had like revamped it. And I remember seeing, it was the same episode. I saw the video for the failsafe, which is still one of my favorite Misery Signal songs. That breakdown is insane. And then I saw a War of Ages song and an Ion Dissonance song, like all back to back. And I was like, oh, these guys are so, like, I had never heard of any of those bands. And it was back in like, I think 2005 or 2006, like when I had first moved to Utah for school. So anyway, yeah, I just, it was one that I came back to. It's not one, like, I think this is kind of one of the ones where I thought, like, this isn't one where I think, oh, it's such an amazing album, I don't understand why it's not on more people's lists. It was definitely more to what Casey was talking about, like, what did I listen to the most this year, and what did I really enjoy? And that one was one. It had a lot of really uplifting lyrics, like the song "Old Ghosts." I put on. I made this like uh, playlist about, like, I called it motivational hardcore, and it was just like a bunch of like hardcore that had motivational lyrics, and that was one of the ones that I put on there. And but I also just listened to that album a ton. So yeah,
cool, great.
cool.